Welcome to the A2C podcast. We're your unfiltered ticket to the world behind high achievers of every kind. No ads here, it's just pure value. So do me a favor and share this if you find some inspiration, motivation, or something else in between. Authentic, no constraints, no limits. Let's go. There he is.
How'd you go?
How are you?
Oh, you got your super intellectual glasses on. That means the questions are going to be hard.
Oh, we don't even know if there will be questions.
Deep, thought-provoking questions.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
And one of these days, we should have a separate conversation. We'll call it a strategic conversation about the multi-line space. I think we should take a step back, kind of talk backgrounds again, and then kind of see what interesting things we can develop to make us some more money so you can get a bigger trailer, I can get a bigger boat.
I think we can go a lot further collaborating than we can competing. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think folks get a lot more from it as well. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
Let me get this pulled up here.
My framing is kind of weird, but I can't seem to get the camera to change. So you get what you get.
You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Barry Rutten and Carson Porter. Rutten or
Rutten. I would say it's like button. Like my English teacher said, two consonants, soft vowel.
I'm from the West, but not California West, so it's Rutten.
Yeah.
We have mountains, not, and it's a hurricane, not a hurricane.
Like I had a friend who was from Missouri, and he goes, I'm from Missouri. And I was like, oh, I got to check my spelling because I've obviously been spelling it wrong. But yeah, I think there's, I have this kind of germination of an idea where you and I should have a real just conversation about what we really could create to essentially own the space. And I think there's a gigantic multi-thousand person market of people in this sweet spot who've gotten into, especially the P&C industry. And it's like, they're not really making ends meet. And then they see the older guys making a lot of money, living a good life, and they don't know how to get there. And the business has changed. And how do we really mastermind with them to really have this impact and influence where we're life changing for them? We're the difference between, 6, 7, or 8 figure income and the difference between money and wealth. And I just think because of your background and because of mine, I just think there's a synergy there that could be really cool.
Yeah, I think the business isn't. So Barry, you've heard this. You've been around successful people and successful things for a long time. And the reality is this: if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always had, right? Sure. I freaking hate that because that's the first thing I was taught in sales back when I worked for this phone sales company for like 3 months before I lost my mind and walked out. But that was my first stab at sales. And I did well. Got my tie cut, got my chair, got my watch, but drove me nuts. But here's the reality. This business is changing. And one of the biggest obstacles we get, I'm in the middle of creating some sales tools for my team. One of the biggest objections we get is, oh, my upline is my mentor or whatever, which is great. An upline should be a mentor. You get paid from someone else's production. I believe you should be there to mentor, but they can't be the end all be all. And they won't be the end all be all. And most of them, frankly, are upline and antiquated. Most upline are antiquated.
More inexperienced.
Yeah, and it's not, that's not to take away from them. They've earned it. Kudos. That's phenomenal. Whatever. But what got them to where they are is not what's going to get most agents to where they want to be, because the business has changed. It's different than it was 10 years ago, let alone 30.
Right.
So
yeah, I think the idea, this has been the flawed, what I call the sales manager concept, certainly since I've been in the business and probably for decades before that and maybe decades after, is the idea that the high producer, the top producer, will, number one, be a good manager. That may not actually be true, because the skill sets and traits and personality features that might make you have the drive and the tenacity to be a good salesperson doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good coach, leader, mentor, that servant leader. In fact, I remember in one role we had one very top producer, and everybody's like, oh, we should make Chuck the sales manager. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. And they're like, why? Chuck's such a big hitter. And I'm like, because Chuck's a jerk. I mean, he, in a good way, like he cares about himself. He doesn't care about you guys. And sales skills are not like a virus. They're not contagious. They may be copyable and mirrorable, but it truly doesn't become part of your DNA. Chuck's Chuck, or whoever this top producer is who they are. And they're successful because of all their background, all their efforts, and all their experiences. And just being around them doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate, or that they even know how to package and translate what they have done and be able to deliver that to you in a way that's actually usable. I take I'm very interested in nutritional supplements and such. And one of the things you become aware of is the term bioavailability. So you're like, oh, this nutrient's good for you. But yeah, once it goes through your stomach, like almost none of it's available. So what do we package it with to make it available? Well, if you're not aware of bioavailability, you're shoving in all this expensive stuff and you're not actually getting any health benefits for it. I think it's the same thing with this upline concept. Well, first of all, if you're an entrepreneur, and I know you'll agree with this, if you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is about filtration. I say that slowly just so it comes out clear. Filtration. You're an idea filter. The idea is to have a really wide top of the funnel and have successively finer filter media as the ideas come down and exit the bottom of the funnel for use in the business. So stuff that doesn't fit your personality at all, your style, that should get filtered out really quick, doesn't apply to your business, gets filtered out quick. And now you start getting into this narrower and narrower funnel where things actually make it through the filter media and get incorporated in the business and then get tested to see if they work or they're effective. Well, if you just say, well, I get all my ideas from my guy, my upline, my gal, my one mentor, well, you only have access to one set of inputs. And their inputs may not be effective inputs for you. They might not be the best inputs. So I think entrepreneurship starts with having a really what I call wide top of funnel and then good filters to know what to get rid of, what to filter out, what to include, what to keep.
Yeah, I agree. What got you to this point in your life where you're a good communicator? Because none of us are born that way. We're born crying and shitting ourselves and everything in between.
I'm going to sound like a football player, which is fine, but I got to give the props to mom. Mom got me into reading really early. And, just all kinds of adventure books. I remember reading the Jules Verne series, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Treasure Island and everything. And I was so blown away by the experience of reading and the visualizations, especially Mysterious Island. I said Treasure Island, but I mean Mysterious Island. The idea that you could put these words into your brain, but your brain saw them as pictures. And it's so funny because today when I'm coaching agents and I say I'm talking about life insurance sales, I'll talk so much about creating visuals in people's minds with your statements and questions. And that totally harkens back to that reading experience. And what was really interesting and telling is that when I was a kid, I'd go to school and in whatever situation, maybe interacting with a teacher or another kid, I would use probably a little bit more advanced vocabulary than my school grade. And kids would make fun of me. And I'd go home, and cry to mom. And mom said, don't bring yourself down to them. Let them rise up to your level. So it was really great advice. And so I've always been a reader and I am really, even though I'm a financial planner, I kind of joke that I really don't, I'm not really good at math except money math. All other math, I actually married a math major. My wife was a math and physics major. She's the smart one, but I've always been attracted to language and the meaning behind words and how just subtle differences in what we say can have such a huge impact at how people are, frankly, linguistically lazy. Can I give you an example? This is probably, rather than me rattling out, I'll just give you an example. Big part of our industry uses the phrase mortgage protection, common term, right? Mortgage protection. Oh, I started out in mortgage protection, I do big business in mortgage protection. And my contrarian brain, and everyone who's listening should know that a lot of this just comes from, for whatever reason, I'm always like, well, why are you saying it that way? And very contrarian thinking. I'm like, mortgages don't need protecting. Banks have collateral. They loan you the money for your house. They own your house. You don't pay them. They take your house through the foreclosure process. Wait a minute. Maybe I should call it foreclosure prevention. And maybe instead of offering life insurance to people, I should actually ask them about, or sort of telling them, hey, you need life insurance. Maybe I should ask them, you've taken on a mortgage. You've signed a document that says you promise to pay these payments on this schedule for this period of time. And the rest of the document sets up the legal structure for how they can take the house back if you don't. So the moment you put ink on paper, or these days e-signed that document, what's your foreclosure prevention plan look like? Because that entire process was based on your ability to pay. It was based on your credit, which was your past ability to pay, and your income, your ability to pay in the future. And so everyone's making this huge assumption, the bank and you, that you'll be able to continue to pay. So why are we calling it mortgage protection when it's actually the thing that the person wants to buy, your customer wants to buy, is foreclosure prevention? That's the actual outcome I want to avoid. So again, I think language is just, I think there's a lot of linguistic incest. Say that again, linguistic incest. Everybody just keeps using the same language that everybody's used forever and keeps repeating it. Eventually you get stupid kids. Well, in this case, I think you get bad language. I think you get ineffective language because no one's actually stopping to say, is this language effective? I'm sure, I know in this space, you have a lot of folks who are in the P&C industry. Drives me insane when I hear people. So let's say a customer or somebody calls in and asks for a quote, and you say, I'm happy to give you a quote. I'm flabbergasted by that. Why are you repeating the word quote? Because in the dictionary, quote is right up there with bid and proposal and estimate, right? If you think about like a roofer, I would get 3 bids, 3 proposals, 3 estimates. So the word quote actually perpetuates the shopping experience, actually perpetuates, hey, you should continue to shop. When in fact, what you want the person to do is acquire their auto protection package from you right now and stop shopping. So I can't prevent the prospect, customer, client from saying the word quote, but I can prevent me from saying it. And I can say, I'd be happy to put together a customized auto protection package for you that balances price and value. You'll be very pleasantly surprised that we do things a little bit differently around here. I'd like to share that with you. So what comes out of our mouth does not have to be order taker language. Sure, I'll give you that quote. I'll do apples to apples or whatever. So I think that the ability to carve your own path through language is really interesting to me, that no one can restrict what you say and how you say it. That's really your competitive advantage.
Dude, I love that. And too, I want to pivot here in just a second, but just maybe one of the reasons we get along, I'm a reader. In fact, one of the things I tell folks all the time, I believe it's in a bunch of our modules. Like we've got 1,000+ hours of recorded modules at this point. Not all for one place, like different levels, different groups. But one of the things I always tell them, you want to sell better, read more. You want to speak more eloquently, loquaciously, colloquially, read more. My Lord, it's amazing how lazy people are. But and don't just listen to the book. There is a synaptial connection that occurs when your hands feel the grain and the weight of the paper and you're smelling it and you turn that page and you hear that noise and your brain starts firing faster.
Audible has really, actually, in my opinion, been a huge detriment to people. There's probably some efficiency there because people are busy and you can do it in your car and everything. But the listening part, and actually when I teach people, and you probably do the same thing, when I coach on what to say and you're trying to bring in new language, someone else's language that you didn't come up with yourself from your own mind, but you like the language, but you want to grab it and master it fast, it's painful in the short run, magical in the long run. Hand write it out. That what you were talking about, that connection between paper and ink and hand and brain, the physiology that's going on to have your brain form a word and get it down into your fingertips to a pen, put that on paper and have to write the words down. First of all, it slows you down, which is really, we read too fast. It slows you down. And that feedback loop of putting pen to paper, I've proven this over and over again. If you want to learn a script fast, hand write it out and you will quickly.
I feel the same way. And I mean, you know this, we talked several times. We do a lot in the digital space, ton in the digital space because it's so phenomenal. And Audible, I listen to Audible. Not all the time though. I will not listen to Audible in lieu of reading every day. And I write. Writing is therapy for me. The pen on the paper and all these things. It's just absolutely pivotal to where I am. But it's so incredible how many people want to cite efficiency and effectiveness. Like, well, Audible's more efficient. It's more effective, or just digital. I'll tell you this. I had cancer earlier this year. I was diagnosed with cancer. And it wasn't the pencil in my pocket that gave me cancer. It was the frickin' cell phone in my pocket. Digital is it's not the end all be all. And I think, I don't think I believe with all my heart, as fervently as I believe in anything, more people would go further forward faster if they would read more and write more. Just 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day sparks that brain. So I love that we're on this track, but I want to change it up just a little bit. Because the description when I started the video, when I put it in there, was the ways that agents are screwing themselves out of tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars potentially. I know you and I have talked about this extensively, but do you want to talk to that for a minute?
Oh, we're talking like property casualty here? Is that
It could be property casualty. It could be health insurance. It could be Medicare. Yeah. We're talking about the one-track career.
Most of us, you talked about, starting out in the cell phone space. Many people, I would imagine a very high percentage of people, because I see it in the Facebook comments too, of various groups we both belong to. Many people start out in other sales roles before getting into insurance. They're selling cars, they're selling solar, they're selling cell phones, they're selling whatever. And then they sort of stumble or discover, or somebody points them to insurance, and they paint them a rosy picture, and they just see it as just one other thing to sell. I think that's why there's such a train wreck in the IUL space, because people have no history of where all this stuff came from and don't really understand the tax rules and what makes it tax-free, and the way they're speaking about everything. And if you ask them to define a 7-pay test, a TEFRA, a TAMRA, a MEC, they couldn't even explain it. And it's because they're seeing it through a product lens. And I lay the blame at the feet of the insurance companies, because the insurance companies, first of all, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They are product manufacturers. Their job is to make policies and ship them out into the public's hands. And that's not a bad thing, I might add. No, it's not bad. It's just
their place in the world.
That's their role in the big cog of the system. And each company, each carrier chooses its distribution system or systems. Captive agents, independent agents, direct to consumer, online only, kiosk in a store, however they want to do, stuffed in an envelope as a rider in your AARP, renewal, here's your pitch for or direct mail, right? So there's all these distribution systems. But when it comes to us people, WEAMs, as my friend used to say, WEAMs, almost everyone comes into the industry, myself included, you included, through a product-centric lens. We're taught, hey, here's what we got to sell. Here's the features. Here's the benefits. If you got lucky, somebody's got benefits. And go be evangelist. Go tell everybody about these products. And if you talk to enough people will want to somehow magically buy this thing. It's like, hey, I always think of the guy in New York City with the trench coat, and he opens up the trench coat, and hopefully he's got clothing underneath, but on one side there's watches, and the other side there's pens or whatever the fake goods are. And I think that's the way a lot of people are coming at this industry, product first, product centric. And then they get to some spot in that product space and go, what else can I sell? What's the next product? Okay, now I'm going to pivot to this, or tie in that, or add on this. And to me, it feels like the finance and insurance guy in the auto dealership adding on floor mats and body undercoating. And that's exactly how it feels to the customer as well. And the thing that I think people should be terrified about is the math says that you're probably only going to close 1 or 2 out of 10 at best. Those are what we call the easy lay down people who would probably agree to anything about anything.
Yeah.
And all the money you spent to market to get in the other 8 leads, first of all, you don't have any systems, so you're just going to let those just slip through your fingers because they weren't ready to buy now today. And the question is, how many of those other 8 to 9 people should you have sold and closed today or next week if you had the right words, the right language, the right statements, the right questions, the right demeanor, the right setups, the right transitions, the right pre-positioning language, the right explanatory language, the right visual language. I say a lot that, he doesn't know this because he doesn't know me, but, I was greatly influenced by Van Muller, who's going to be with us, which is great.
You're going to get a chance. Have you met him in person?
I have, but he doesn't remember, it's the handshake. I mean, I remember him presenting when I was in my 20s.
While we're there, remind me, I will personally reintroduce you to Van.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of speaking on stage with him, and every time I call, that dude picks up the phone and is willing to spend hours with me. He's just the biggest heart.
He's a really, really good human being. You can't fake that. You could see it in his writings. You can hear it in his voice. And I think the reason he resonated with me early on was I always felt it was really important to be a human being. And if we have time, I'll tell you a quick story about that I think will make that so razor sharp for everybody. But my point is, in many ways, we're probably turning people off with what I call the hard product pivot, or the obvious, product pivot, because it's such a trigger to people's reticular activating system, to the defensive lizard that's in everyone's brain, because it's like, oh, here comes the sales pitch, and the hand goes up, the defensive thing goes up, they're just trying to pitch me goes up, and in my opinion, the right way to do this is to have an integrative approach with a bigger outcome than the products themselves. So I've always said that in our industry, in my opinion, we only do 2 things, which is really great because it makes things simple. We do 2 things. We help people avoid financial loss in all its forms with either work we can do ourselves or people we can introduce them to if it's not in our space, because you shouldn't be futzing around an area that you don't know what you're talking about. So be ready to refer out. In the CFP world, it's a requirement that you have to have an adequate level of expertise to give advice. And if you don't, you need to bring in other outside experts to be focused on the outcome that the client has. And to not fake it till you make it, or other whatever horse shit flies around masquerading as advice. And sorry, that's a little rant thing that I could get on for 2 hours. So it crept out a little bit. I'm from New York. Everybody should know that. So every once in a while, but I've been on the West Coast since the late 80s. And so every once in a while, I pull back the New Yorker guy. It's kind of like the Hulk. He just comes out in certain moments. And so what we want to do is present to a client a comprehensive solution. So like in the PNC space.
Say that in P and PC.
Yeah, say that. I got to say that slower.
CMP, spell like cup, Barry.
I believe in what I call total asset protection, right? Protecting the 3 broad categories of assets. The physical assets that can be lost, damaged, or stolen would need to be repaired or replaced. The financial assets, your savings, your investments, your home equity, the money you've accumulated so far can be taken away in a lawsuit. And then the largest asset by far for most people is all the future cumulative income they're going to earn. And so they need an income replacement plan in the event that got stopped or interrupted so they could withstand and recover from that income interruption. There is not one product mentioned in that, because if I want to create engagement with my client up front, or if I'm in the Medicare space, or if I'm in the health space, or I'm in the life-only space, what role do you play in your client's life? So first, helping them avoid financial loss, and then achieving financial success, whatever that means to them in whatever form that is. That's it. Everything we sell in that space, from savings accounts to investments to insurance policies, either has to do with avoiding financial loss or achieving financial success. And once I started telling that to clients, they're like, oh, thank God. Thank God you simplified that for me. That makes so much sense. Okay, what do I need to do in each of those areas? Because now you're selling an outcome. Do I want to avoid financial loss? Do I want to be set back 10 years, 20 years financially to back where I was 20 years ago? Think about where you were 20 years ago. Do you want to go back there? No. But if I move you forward 10 or 20 years, but I have the same defensive strategy that I have today, now I've created another 20-year gap. So that defensive wall needs to move forward behind that new financial position that person achieves. Now your client's working with you collaboratively. Okay, what do I need to do? Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's do this together. Then the products become the implementation of that plan and strategy across all the known risk areas and all the known goals that people might want to accomplish.
Which is crazy, dude, because so we teach a lot of similar things, and you and I have talked about that, but I don't care if you're trying to cross-sell a health insurance book, a Medicare book, a home book, an auto book, a commercial book, a life insurance book, retirement planning, it doesn't matter. That same strategy, that same mindset, mentality, a couple tweaks to the questions or the information given, and it works no matter what it is you're doing. You could be at a Ford dealership trying to sell GM seeds, and it would work.
Yeah.
What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish in the purchase of whatever it is I have to sell, which, by the way, is the only way I get paid, is nothing more than the facilitation, the implementation, you obtaining what it is you told me you wanted to have in the first place. But agents are still out here pitching product.
Well, and you really hit on the exact reason why people can be so ineffective in their sales. And I want to hit it for 2 levels. I want to hit the car dealership example, and then I want to hit that second point you made. So if a couple walked onto a car dealership lot and the guy kind of, rushed up to them and said, hey, we've got great deals on, do they still sell Mazda Miatas? It's always the thing I use.
Mazda's not out. Mazda's still in. Mazda's in.
But I mean, they still sell the little two-seater convertible.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Miata anymore. It's all crossovers. So
I'll stay with my Miata example because I need it to be a 2-seater. So if he's like, hey, this is really, you should get this car. It's a great price and it's, sporty and this and that and wind in your hair. And if you knew nothing about the customer, a lot of people might say, well, that's a lot of sales pressure. Now, if you go back to the morning where there was a sales meeting and the sales manager said, oh man, we are overstocked with Miatas on the lot. You guys got to move these. And there's a bonus if you sell, 2 Miatas this week. And I go back and say, hey, did that guy engage in bad salesmanship or good salesmanship? And everybody would say, oh, bad. And I say, well, what if you knew one very important fact about the customer? What if you knew that they were looking, so if they were looking, do you know what kind of car they're looking for, right? Like, why are you shopping, right? And so if we knew 2 facts about that couple, we'd know whether we were right or wrong. If we knew that they had 5 children, is the Miata a good recommendation?
Could be. And this is coming from a guy that has a family,
right?
And I've got a Camaro. Now, granted, it's not a 2-seater Camaro. There is a back seat, but it's not much of one.
But it's like a grocery bag back seat, right?
But it's like Dad needs to get out.
There you go.
Get out. And Dad has the ability to go get out.
Yeah. So if I knew that the parents already had a van, their minivan with the 3 rows of seats or their SUV with the 3 rows of seats and all the car seats, And the Miata was for them to get away from the kids and go on mom and dad date nights and just go for drives and let, grandma watch the kids. See, I need to know about what that person's trying to accomplish. So my question needs to be, what has you looking for a new car today? So now they can tell me either our van crapped out, we need another van, or the kids are killing us, we need to get away, you got a 2-seater. Now I'm in the right direction, right? So we have to ask questions before telling people all about our great products.
Dude, I love that. So one of the things I teach my agents is that, and I teach it to them because I use it when I'm meeting with clients myself to talk about their life insurance or their financial future or whatever, right? But what I always tell them is the difference between where you're at and where you want to be, the difference is the work in between, right? So that's what needs to be done. In other words, that's what needs to be implemented. The work in between where you're at versus where you want to be. Well, it's no different for your clients, right? What they need to pay you to do for them or help them implement, how you earn your living, which is the work in between, is the difference between where they're at and where they want to be. Well, how the hell would you know what work needs to be done unless you understood where they're at and where they want to go? Pretty simple, but you got to ask questions.
Ever hear somebody say, someone will say, I already have that at work, which they're essentially applying, they already have life insurance at work. And you'll hear agent after agent after agent start talking about that. Like, well, it's not portable and it doesn't go with you and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, or, I really think I have enough. I have it through work. And I'm like, you can't have that conversation with that person because what you're talking about is their resources, right? So in my world, the formula is very simple. Risk minus resources equals gap with a question mark after it, right? And so that's really a nice little piece of information you share there, Mr. Customer, but hold your horses. I need to understand the risk that you're facing. I need to understand if we lost your income and your income was lost permanently to your family or temporarily, we'll talk disability, something like that. What do we stand to lose? How much money does it take to run this household? Then and only then can we evaluate, the adequacy of the amount you have through work, because the Human Resources Department didn't ask you about your personal budget in determining that every employee gets $50,000. Every employee gets $50,000 because that's what's called the 58 cost, meaning it's the amount of insurance an employer can give employees without having to add a little dink of taxable income to their paycheck every week. After that, they have to tag you for that little bit of what's called imputed income. If you get like a 1-time salary, 3-time salary, and it gets to hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I still don't know if that coverage you have through work is accurate until I know about you and your family and your spouse and she working, is he working? And so to have that conversation and start trying to talk them out of that is why clients get pissed off, because it's insulting to say, well, you're wrong and I'm right. And, here's why I'm right and here's why you're wrong. As adults, that's really offensive.
Go back to the car dealership, right? If you're a proud Mazda Miata owner, you pull up, I'm a GM guy, although I ordered a truck 90 days ago and we still don't have our allotment because of the UAW shutdowns and strikes, but I digress. But you're a Mazda Miata guy and you're like, you know what? Just once, I'm going to test drive a Corvette or a Camaro or something like that, right? You pull up on the GM guy comes running out. Maybe I'm the GM guy. I love him, right? I love him. I come running out and I'm like, well, I can see why you'd want to trade in that piece of shit. By the way, you're so proud of that piece of shit.
Yeah.
You're so proud of it. You love it. You just wanted to give this a try, see what it's about. And if it was worth it, yeah, maybe you'll go with it if it fills the gap in your happiness. But you're already happy, right? How likely are you to buy a car from me if I come out and immediately insult what you have instead of being like, man, those Miatas, those are freaking cool cars. I've only had the chance to drive one a couple times, but tell me, what brings you to the lot today?
Exactly.
How is that a different experience?
I don't know why, I'm a boater. Anybody who knows me, I'm kind of a sort of obsessive about it. I've got 2 boats. One's an 18-foot center console Grady White with a really cool stainless steel T-top, probably one of the only ones in existence. And then we've got a 30-foot Flybridge sedan diesel-powered thing that we take out in Puget Sound. I'm near Seattle. And I'm obsessive about keeping them clean. I'm obsessive about keeping them maintained. Yesterday, we live near what's called Lake Washington here in Seattle, and the lake was a sheet of glass. I mean, mirror smooth. And all I could think of is I just want to be on the boat. It was a sin to not be on the boat. That's how strongly I feel about it. And so, of course, I go to every boat show. There's multiple boat shows a year. And I've been going to boat shows probably since I'm 18 years old, because I started out in New York. There was boat shows in the East Coast and now West Coast. Every single boat salesperson starts with the same question. What kind of boat do you have now? And I want to give him the finger. I really do, because it's such a size up question. And first of all, it's an irrelevant. It's again, risk minus resources equals gap. Like boating desire minus current boat equals gap, right? I mean, what I own now, to your Corvette, when you started talking about the Corvettes, yeah, I get on boats that I cannot possibly afford. You know, they have these crazy boats and, you know, $30 million, and it's just not my world. And it's really not my desire, right? But there's certainly boats that are a bunch of levels below that, you know, maybe a couple $1 million that I'd like, that would be really nice. See how my sales skills are with my wife, right? But that size up question, which is an irrelevant question, it's the same question that I'll hear agents say, hey, I noticed we don't have your life insurance. Who do you have your life insurance with? And I'm like, I couldn't design a worse question. The answer is irrelevant, especially right now. And how is that getting you anyplace? So one day I was at the boat show, and this, we'll just say this kinder older gentleman asked the question. Same question. And I don't know why it hit me differently. And I just felt bad, right? And I said, can I just tell you that's just not a great question to ask? And what's interesting, and I think because he was older, and because there's a lot of young guys around, you know, he said, well, why is it a bad question? And you know, that's probably the wisdom of age, right? Like he was willing to listen to why. And I told him, I said, it sizes me up. It doesn't get you anywhere in the conversation. It makes me want to run away and doesn't really accomplish anything. Certainly doesn't get me closer to want to buy a boat from you. He said, well, what should I say? And I actually, it's funny, for all the years I was mad about the question, I had never thought what I actually wanted to be asked. But in the moment when he said, what would you want to be asked? I it took me like a millisecond. And I said, what do you love about boating? And he like lit up like a Christmas tree. And because he could see it, he could see all the conversations that had ended in nothing. And then he could see all the future conversations that would be engaging. Because I'll certainly tell you all day long what I love about boating. And it would allow us to make a little bit of a connection. You'd hear some things about me. And then I could say, is there anything about your current boat that doesn't allow you to do everything you'd want to do on a boat? And oh my God, would you hear from me about this factor of our shower and this act, this. And I would tell you. And I'd effectively give you if you could find me a boat that looks like this, I actually might want to buy it. Well, imagine that. 2 questions, and you might be selling me a $1 million boat versus me, you know, walking away in disgust at the boat show. That's why I'm fascinated about language. That's why I'm fascinated about questions.
Dude, I love it. I love that. So let's, because I promised you I wouldn't take up too much of your day here. Before we wrap this up, the whole point of this was I wanted y'all to get to meet Barry, who is a badass, who, if you don't think it's worth your time and $300 to come down to Scottsdale, not just listen to you speak, Barry, but to hang out with you for the whole damn day. If you don't think it's worth that kind of time and you want to sell more life insurance and annuities, you're fucking crazy. I'm so tired of pussyfooting around it. Like, I'll be the one to say the bad words, Barry. I'll be the one to say them. You stay professional. I'll say them. But y'all, you are crazy. I can't believe you. If you tell me you want to do more and you don't think coming down and hanging out with Barry is going to help you be better, I don't believe you. I call bullshit. So Barry,
you're hanging out with the other people. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for 36 years. I feel like I'm going to be meeting a superhero if I get to see Van, who I haven't seen in, you know, God knows how long, and David McKnight, which I always feel like I should be saying Mr. McKnight, and some of the folks that you have on the platform that I've never had the pleasure of hearing or know of them. I've looked some of them up, and they're kind of fascinating in what they do. And I think the industry does get maybe a justifiable rap that it's another conference, it's another pitch fest, it's another this, and I'm as sick of that as anybody else. But you know what's funny? This idea that everything should be free, number one, and that people should give of their time, experience, wisdom, painful education with no expectation. No, I'm not going there with any expectation. I'm just hoping to meet a lot of cool people like you, because here's what I know. And I think maybe you haven't, this is not a critique, but I want to magnify what you're saying about the mingling. Okay. Because whatever David says from stage is going to be good, and what Van says and what Joanna says and what I say and what you say, it's all going to be good stuff. And it's all going to be actionable and implementable. And if you use it, it's going to be profitable. But, you know, little hinges swing big doors, right? It's that hallway conversation. It's that lunch conversation. It's the pulling somebody aside conversation. That's what I'm looking forward to. That's where I get my energy from. That's where I get excited about. And the fact that you set this meeting up intentionally and structurally, I'm interested in seeing, I imagine like us speakers are going to be in some like corral. We're not going to be able to leave. and you know, there's people just kind of come in and mingle. But that's the value, because I think probably, you're very transparent. I mean, you'll just put it out there. And I think the ability to come to a meeting where that's the intention, and I don't think anybody should be scared by the title, like do the damn work. I'm not even sure anybody really grasps what you're really saying there.
It's the thing people are the most scared of, though.
They're like, well, what am I going to be asked to do? You're going to be asked to consider that your current process may not be optimal. Your current language may not be optimal. Your current approach may not be optimal. And do the damn work to do the research first to figure out how to optimize it, and then go do it, and then get feedback and adjust and test and adjust and test and enjoy I think the part of this business that's cool is the control we have in doing that entrepreneurial research, application, and fine tuning. And these events should be seen as like hyper-focused laboratories where you can accelerate that research cycle. It's like fast prototyping in a factory. And again, reject what you don't like or doesn't apply to you. Embrace what does. Try it, apply it. But I have my Yoda cup here. I don't know if you can see it. There you go, my Yoda cup. Because I really believe that movie had the best sales line of all time ever, which is do or do not. There is no try. I was just telling a group of agents the other day, I said, they were, I'm going to my goal planning meeting. My sales manager is putting on my goal planning meeting. I'm like, well, that's a fucking waste of time. You know what I love about you? That I can say fucking and not get in trouble. I love that.
Welcome to my platform.
I know. I got such a tight grasp on not letting that beast come out. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, as soon as you say the word goal, you're saying, well, this is just like I said earlier about quote, sounding like bid and proposal and estimate. The word goal is, well, this is what I'm hoping for. This is what I'm going to try and do. And they're like, well, what should I use? I was like, how about the word mission, like the military? Military doesn't know anything other than that's the mission. It will get accomplished no matter what. That's what's awesome about the military. That's why you should hire military people in your business, whatever business you're in, because they understand. Well, first of all, they understand chain of command, which is sorely lacking, but that's a conversation for another day. But they understand mission. They understand accomplishing the mission without fail. The idea of, well, maybe we'll take the hill, maybe we won't. And because when you have goals in January and by March you're behind and you give up on the goal, I'm like, well, maybe that's not what you need. Maybe that's not what you need as a goal. Maybe it's something else. And I think when you get in a room of contrarian thinkers like you or me or David or Van or anybody else on the stage who are saying, hey, here's another way to think about what you're doing so that you don't miss out on hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars that you otherwise could have just picked up. The dollars were right in front of you, but you didn't spot them. Using a boating reference, your radar wasn't tuned in. Your radar didn't spot it. In the 60s, when they first put radar into jet fighters, they could see 2 or 3 targets and there was a blip. And I don't know if that was a duck or a plane, or it was pretty primitive. Today's F-22, F-35 can identify probably 50 or 60 targets at one time, release 50 missiles at one time, hit them all and fly away while the missiles are still in flight. It's incredible. Can identify what it is. If you don't have really good radar, you're not going to spot the opportunities. Your targeting system's not going to lock onto those opportunities. You're not going to be sure which type of missile you shoot because there's all kinds of different missiles. And you're not going to hit the target. You're going to waste the missile, which is in a lot of cases very expensive. And so I think that when you look at this business as I've got a certain amount of input opportunities, I've got a certain amount of output opportunities. How good are you in the middle, right? How good are you in the middle?
What do you hope they can take home and serve their community better with, feed their family better with, put Susie in dance and Johnny in football better with? What do you hope an agent comes to you with?
I think it's just pain removal, removing the obstacles, removing the objections, the rejections, the stalls, the delays, the buyer's remorse, reversed sales. I can remember starting out in my career, 9 o'clock at night, to just finished up another round of ineffective appointment calling and, thought I had to know everything that was in the books and the credenza above my head or the shelf above my head. And if somebody had said it's about language and it's about communication and it's about asking questions and really caring about the outcome. So, as far as outcomes for the people, what I would like is if somebody could, was talking about me and they said, well, this person made my career easier and less painful and took away a lot. I'm very proud of the fact on my website, I've got a lot of testimonials and almost all of them talk about no objections. It's kind of like my calling card, zero objection insurance sales. And people think that's like an impossibility. I'm like, actually, it's the exact opposite. Not only is it a possibility, it should be the norm. No one said this had to be combative and painful. And I started out when I was 26. I left law school to get into this profession. So I was never on a track other than some kind of professional track, but I saw law as kind of negative after a while, and I just didn't feel like it was a fit. And so I like the idea that you could help people and have clients and have a positive outcome. So I've had a lot of people say, well, why do you teach and why do you coach? And then I said, because it's leverage. I said, if you really believe in this profession and you're not just there to get, a check, you want to impact as many people as possible. So I always think about, I have to say that I sometimes get emotional about it because I talk a lot about this idea that you're working for the little girl in the little dress holding the little doll, and she's in her driveway. And I always think there's two things that are going to happen to her. She's either going to walk in the front door, go to her bedroom with her posters and all her stuff and just go be a little girl, or she's going to turn the other direction, get into a U-Haul, and they're going to drive away from the house. And I don't want that to happen on my watch. So I think about all the kids that go to college because of me and all the people that I work through. Like it's leverage, right? Like, you can't meet. I mean, how many people could you meet with a year? 500 personally? Maybe. Yeah, I used to do 4 or 5 appointments a day, every single day. And you just do the math and you're like, okay, there's a capacity problem. So I want to send the kids to college. I want to help the people retire. I want to keep the kids in their home and in their school and in their bedroom and with their friends. I don't want them to move into a shitty part of town with a dangerous school and terrible walk to school and gunfire or whatever the heck's in the bad part of town. And none of us like rejection, right? But the question is, what matters more to you? Like preventing that scenario from happening to people that you could have helped, or your own discomfort in learning maybe how to make those conversations less about you and your products and more about them and their outcomes. And so I think sometimes I worry, does it sound like I'm on a high horse? No, I bled just like you may be bleeding now. I mean, there were so many times I'm like, I'm starving, like 100% commission. It was all about life insurance sales. If I don't figure this out, I had to tell my wife and my mother, which was way worse, that I was leaving law school to go into financial services. Like I couldn't fail, right? And so I just want to tell one quick story and then I'll wrap up, because I think this is so instructive. I'm in my office. This guy had set an appointment, comes in, and he's like the most handsome man you've ever seen. He's probably 70, tall, thin, fit. He's got one of those 2-piece Adidas shiny tennis warm-ups, with the 3 stripes. His I don't know which was whiter and brighter, his teeth or his sneakers. Tan. I was in San Diego at the time. And, we started a conversation, and it turns out he's got a big chunk of money and it's for retirement. And I was really pretty new, And we got to some point in the conversation. I was like, Jesus Christ, I got to stall. I have no idea what to do, right? So I said, I don't even know what possessed me to ask this. I said, so did you come into this money suddenly, or did it take a long time to acquire it? Of course, tells it a long time, whole career, scrimp, save. I said, so will it matter whether we solve this on Thursday or next Thursday or 3 weeks from Thursday, as long as we have the right outcome? He goes, no. I should have stopped talking at that point, and I didn't. And I said, well, would you mind if I brought in some other outside experts who were involved with my firm? Because I really want to make sure we get the right outcome for you, because frankly, and here's the part where I thought I had really messed up. I said, frankly, my palms are sweaty and I have a knot in my stomach. And in my head, while the words are spilling out of my face, I'm like, oh my God, I just completely lost his confidence in me. And I said, I just want to get this right. And I thought, well, you blew it, right? And he looks at me, Carson, straight on, unblinking. And he says, son, he's 72, I'm 26. He says, son, you just keep telling people who look like me what you just said, and you'll do really well in this business. And I thought about that for 6 months. Every day I thought about what he said. And it just kind of set me on the path to this, for God's sakes, be a human being. I think most of the people in our industry are good people who want to do good things for people, but you've become a shill for the product provider that you're working with. And your humanity and your personality and the who-ness of you is just lost. And you think it's all about the tax-free this and the index that and the annuity that and the life insurance that, and it's not. People don't care about this stuff. We think it's all important. People just like, I just want to be okay and then go back to living my life. And like you said, taking the kids to gymnastics or to softball or whatever. And I think the thing that if I could influence people and people get to know me, and it's just like, Go please be a human being and stop being whatever is in air quotes between an air quote 1 and air quote 2 of insurance agent, because that's not what people want. They want a partner, and there's a lot of partners to choose from. So why you? Why should they do business with you versus any other option available to them in the space, which is like almost infinitely vast? Well, if it isn't you and your uniqueness, what the hell is it? What could it possibly be? And so I'm open to let people sort of let that you-ness out and then learn a process to let them just see the real you through the questions you ask and the engagements that you have, and stop pitching products. People will, when you stop pitching your products, people start buying your solutions. And I think that's what we all want.
Well, dude, I think that's a perfect way to end it. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Rutten, CFP, R. For those that, I was making an R gang sign, but then I decided to just go with sign language, American Sign Language. Barry, I appreciate you being on and showing everybody who you are and what it is you're about. Thanks so much for tuning into the A2C podcast today. I appreciate you joining me on this unfiltered journey into the minds of remarkable people. I hope you enjoyed the candid conversations, the authenticity, and the insights shared. Remember, this is an ad-free podcast, so your support in sharing this with others, well, it means the world to me. If you want to stay connected with me and the podcast and be the first to know about our upcoming guests and episodes, follow me, the podcast, whatever, on social media, A2C Podcast on Facebook, and we'll get our Instagram and everything else set up. At cporter389 is my own personal stuff on all platforms. Your feedback, your ideas, they're invaluable to me. Drop me a message, drop the podcast a message, share your thoughts, let me know who you'd like to hear from next. Together, we're on this mission to explore all the facts of success and life, but be candid as hell about it. So I appreciate you. Come find me, come follow me, and let's do some awesome things together. Appreciate y'all.